When it came time for Shidduchim, my wife decided to take this opportunity and was discussing with the Rebbetzin different ideas, advice about Shidduchim. And she said that just being there, talking to the Rebbetzin told her everything will turn out all right. I hope so, Baruch Hashem. Meanwhile, at one point, she was speaking to the Rebbetzin said that maybe your future husband is not here now. Maybe he's still in South Africa or in Morocco. I happened to be in Morocco at that time. About a year and a half later, we go out and we're about to get engaged. It was Yud Shvat Tafshin Memches, and she asked her father if she could go to speak to the Rebbetzin, to tell her personally that they were going to write in that Sunday, Yud Beis Shevat. And she came to the Rebbetzin, and my wife always said, always walking into the Rebbetzin, like others said, was such a malchus, such royalty. And little did she know, my wife, that 12 days later was Chof Beis Shevat. So she's talking, how you doing, how's the family? So then she says to the Rebbetzin, like, as I came in the past to talk to you about it, I want to tell you that in Mitzvah Hashem we're going to write in to get engaged on Sunday. The Rebbetzin was wishing her Mazel Tov. And she's thinking it's not a Mazel Tov yet. But in hindsight, if you think about it, in a certain way, Yud Shvat Tashmem Ches is when we got engaged. The Rebbetzin wished us Mazel Tov then. Peil Mamish, she kept on talking about we're going to get engaged and the Bacher. So the Rebbetzin, as I'm sure many of you heard this hundreds of times, asks her, what's the name of this Bacher? So she says, Levi Yitzchak Shemtov. So she asks, is this the grandson of Ben Zion Shemtov? Obviously the Rebbetzin knew who was Ben Zion Shemtov, but she knew I was the grandson, but she asked the question. And she said, yeah. And she said, I'm very happy to hear that, because now I know you're going to speak to your children in Yiddish, and that's very important. Sunday was dollars. We wrote into the Rebbe, and a little bit after dollars was over, we got an answer from the Rebbe, Nochain v'yehei v'shah teva mitzlachas askal tzion. I come to the house, the Feldman house, Chazan Kala, and a few minutes later the phone rings, and somebody came to tell my wife the Rebbetzin is on the phone. She would introduce herself as Mrs. Schneerson from President Street. My wife came to the phone. I was standing there, but I didn't hear the Rebbetzin, and she gave her brachas and brachas and brachas. We were supposed to go see together the Rebbetzin, but my father told us that she's not feeling that well, give her a few more days. Meanwhile, that day, when we were there, mamish right then and there, as soon as we got engaged, somebody took a few pictures. I was holding my brother Bensi on my lap, and Sarah was holding Rifki on her lap, on her knee. And a few pictures my father asked if they could develop right away, give them to the Rebbetzin. So he brought them to the Rebbetzin. I didn't know about it, but they gave it to the Rebbetzin. A little while later, a week after Shiva, when they were cleaning up the Rebbe's house, the room, the dresser, so the pictures were on the dresser in their room. So they took the pictures and to move them away. So the Rebbe said, leave those pictures. That made her very happy. Anyway, so I experienced Chof Beis Shevat, the Levaya, the Shiva was, the biggest, the most important thing was the pain. To see that Tsar, to see what the Rebbe was going through was unbelievable. This was the Rebbe's greatest confidant. This was the person closest to the Rebbe, and you could see the Tsar, the pain that Rebbe was going through. On the other hand, the Rebbe kept on saying and pushing V'achayit in a liboy. The Rebbe said Meistes Kenu Chomish and Meistes of Chomish. And as Farbrengen last night, some people said, how did the Rebbe cope with this? How did the Rebbe deal with this? And the Rebbe dealt with this is by building and doing and making and the names of Chaya Mushka and the pu'ulos that were done on the Rebbetzin Chaya Mushka. A few days after the Shiva was over, my shver was by the Rebbe, And the Rebbe asked him, what are the plans for the l'chaim? And those days, I know nobody could relate to it over here, but in those days, Mem Ches, Mem Vav, Mem Zayin, Mem Ches, the Rebbe was very pro small l'chaims. And it was done in a house, a few people, close friends, and that was it. Now it's big catered meals, and we use it because it's but then it was small. So the plan was to be in my parents' house. My father was here before. And Dr. Feldman told the Rebbe, it's going to be by the Shemtovs. So the Rebbe said, if you're making it smaller because of what happened, Adrabah, you should make it bigger. You should do it in a catering hall. Fine. The Rebbe haste, we do it. So then there was a Crown Palace Hotel, and they had a catering hall, and they rented it. That's where it's going to be. Now it doesn't no longer exist. There's a houses on Crown Street. A few days later, and the Rebbe said, because this would make her happy. A few days later, a call came in from a skidduch that there should be real dishes, and a few days later, there was a call there should be live music at the l'chaim. Now people thought we were crazy. You make it in the hall, especially on the shleishim, and live music. So we were very clear this was not our idea. This was clearly from the Rebbe. Shvuis, my Shven asked me if he could come, if I could go to Kesher Bracha with him. He wants to introduce me to the Rebbe. First I'm thinking, I don't think I have to be introduced to the Rebbe. The Rebbe knows who I am, but my Shver wants to introduce me. How can I say no? So he comes with me. He comes to the Rebbe. The Rebbe always had a smile, and the Rebbe and him always had a very special relationship. So he has a big smile. He says, "This is my future son-in-law." So the Rebbe gave him a bottle of vodka and said, "It's a chonis for the chasana, preparations for the wedding." So we got married Chof Beis Shevat, exactly 4 months later after Chof Beis Shevat. That day, the day of the chuppah, as it was always, I was in the Rebbe's house, and the Rebbe came down the steps and gave me his siddur to daven mincha, as all Chasanim had. That Shabbos, by the Farbrengen, after Chasana, the Rebbe was looking for Dr. Feldman to say l'chaim. Dr. Feldman wasn't there, and then I see the Rebbe speaking to Rabbi Levi Shemtov, and the next thing I see is the Rebbe says, "Who is Dr. Feldman's Eidim?" So I get up and I say l'chaim to the Rebbe. And then the Rebbe asked to other Chasanim and their fathers to say l'chaim. I'll just mention this, that this has become my title, Dr. Feldman's Eidim. Interesting. When my wife went to the Rebbetzin, is Rebbetzin Shemtov, you're marrying Rebbetzin Shemtov Einikel. But for the Rebbe knew my name. The Rebbe knew my Zaydas, my father, but my title was Dr. Feldman Zaydim, and that's a wonderful, amazing honor, schus, to have this title, Dr. Feldman Zaydim. So after the Rebbe told all the other Chasanim and the fathers of Selachayim, I believe the Rebbe started Samach to Samach, and they were singing, and then the Rebbe stood up, and everybody stood up, and it was clapping and dancing. This was a tremendous schus. So we're married many years, and we don't have children yet. And at some point, my wife Sarah told me about this discussion she had with the Rebbetzin, when the Rebbetzin said that you're going to speak to your children Yiddish. So I said to her that if the Rebbetzin said that, we're definitely going to have children, Lashon Rabim, plural, and we're going to speak to them Yiddish. And it's going to be our own biological children. Took many years. We had our younger siblings get married, have children, more and more. And it was not easy. It was painful. But we knew, without a question, that if the Rebbetzin said you're going to speak to your children Yiddish, we're going to speak to our children Yiddish. And Baruch Hashem, it took 13 years. And Baruch Hashem, we had twins, Chaim Mushka, Menachem Mendel. And 3 years later, Baruch Hashem had Yosef. And yes, we speak them in Yiddish. So I know most of you over here speak Yiddish, and in Hashem, you should speak to your children in Yiddish, because that's very important according to the Rebbetzin.